Welcome to this explainer. Today we're tackling a really massive challenge, one that honestly haunts almost every single organization out there, and that's how to keep your long-term plans from completely derailing. We're going to look specifically at that absolutely crucial transition from just planning a strategy in a meeting room to actually making it happen in the real world. Okay, let's dive right into this.
So it's a fantastic question, isn't it? Why do these brilliant, meticulously crafted strategies just fail the minute they leave the boardroom? Studies actually suggest that up to 90% of strategic initiatives fail to reach their intended goals. 90%! The reality here is that formulating a strategy, creating that perfect, elegant blueprint, that's really only the beginning of a highly uncertain journey. The hard part isn't deciding where to go. It's making sure the ship doesn't sink the second it leaves the harbor.
To survive that journey, here is our roadmap for today. Number 1, navigating the strategic plan. 2, types of strategic control. 3, focus on implementation control. 4, strategic versus operational control. And finally, number 5, avoiding implementation pitfalls.
All right, Section 1, navigating the strategic plan. To understand why we even need control mechanisms in the first place, we really have to look at the turbulent environment businesses operate in.
Strategic planning is, well, it's a massive balancing act. On one side, you've got external factors, unpredictable economies, sudden technology shifts, fierce competitors coming out of nowhere. And these are completely outside of the organization's control, right? But then on the other side, you have your internal realities, your company culture, your available people, your budget. Success requires constantly steering to find that perfect fit between your internal strengths and those chaotic external forces.
But here's the catch, and it's a big one. Implementation doesn't just happen overnight. Executing a grand strategy can literally take 5 years or more. Think about that. If you wait for a traditional post-action evaluation at the finish line, it's completely useless. By the time you realize you made a mistake, 5 entire years are gone. You need active, real-time steering to keep things moving in the right direction.
Which brings us to Section 2, types of strategic control. Because to manage a multi-year journey, we definitely need overarching systems to keep us on track.
So think of strategic control as your overarching steering mechanism. Just like steering keeps a physical ship stable against, crashing waves and sudden winds, strategic control helps management handle ambiguity. It lets them course correct in real time. It basically ensures that the firm's strategic direction stays absolutely true to its long-term goals, no matter what happens in the water around it.
And to steer effectively, organizations generally rely on 4 distinct safety nets. There's premise control, which checks your foundational assumptions, strategic surveillance to watch for unexpected threats, special alert control for sudden, massive emergencies, and finally, implementation control, which is going to be our main focus today. Moving to Section 3. Focus on implementation control. We're zooming in on this specific mechanism because it is the vital pulse check for your daily, monthly, and yearly actions.
By definition, implementation control is about evaluating whether the ongoing plans, programs, policies, and projects are actually guiding the organization toward its predetermined objectives. Simply put, it asks one critical question: are your ongoing investments actually moving you toward your ultimate goal? It forces managers to look at the money being spent right now, look at the people deployed, and decide if they're generating real results or if it's time to pivot.
Actually, it really helps to contrast this with premise control. Premise control asks something like, hey, is our market actually growing like we predicted? It checks the theory, the foundation. Implementation control, on the other hand, checks the execution. It asks, are the marketing campaigns we launched last quarter actually getting us the market share we wanted? One is the blueprint, while the other is the boots-on-the-ground execution. So how do companies actually do this? Usually through 2 practical methods. The first is monitoring what we call strategic thrusts. These are small critical projects where managers use strict stop or go assessments. They basically decide if a project survives based on hitting specific time or cost thresholds. The second method is milestone reviews. This is where progress is heavily scrutinized after hitting a predetermined date or a major event, just to reassess if the whole strategy is even still relevant.
Let's jump into Section 4, strategic versus operational control. It is incredibly common for leadership to confuse overarching strategic control with day-to-day operational control, so we need to separate them. The real difference here comes down to scope and timeline. Strategic control is long-term. It navigates ambiguity to make sure the organization is doing the right things overall.
Operational control, though, is short-term. It focuses heavily on daily tasks and efficiency. If you think about it, if strategic control is the captain at the wheel steering the ship, operational control is the mechanic down in the engine room just making sure the pistons keep firing smoothly.
The defining question of operational control is simply, are we utilizing our resources properly? It evaluates the task-level performance of individual departments to make sure time schedules and budgets are respected. And look, it's totally vital, but it is completely distinct from questioning the overarching strategy itself. Because, you can have a perfectly running engine, but if the captain is steering you straight into an iceberg, you're still in massive trouble.
Finally, Section 5. Avoiding implementation pitfalls. We know how to steer now, but what are the hidden rocks that can sink our ship during the execution phase?
Well, there are some incredibly dangerous, real-world pitfalls to watch out for. The most frequent killer of strategy? Lack of ownership. If no one is strictly responsible for a goal, it's just not going to happen. Add in poor communication, or maybe managers getting totally bogged down in daily minutia, or a plan that is just way too overwhelming, and the whole thing collapses. Sometimes companies treat the planning document itself as the finish line, completely ignoring the implementation process entirely.
To avoid those rocks, top management has to perfectly align 5 crucial puzzle pieces. You have to have the right people. You need to allocate sufficient resources, meaning time and money. You need to structure with clear authority. You have to build systems to actually track those milestones we talked about. And you need to foster a culture that genuinely rewards success. If literally just one of these pieces is missing, implementation becomes nearly impossible. So, to actively roll this out and ensure continuous monitoring, you've got to follow a few concrete steps. Start by ruthlessly assessing the plan for unrealistic timelines. Then develop a crystal clear, task-oriented vision so your team knows exactly what success looks like. Choose and appoint a dedicated team leader to monitor the pulse of the project. And above all else, keep senior management continuously involved. Because without executive support, even the absolute best plans are just going to gather dust. So take a look at your own organization's controls. Are you actively using implementation control to kill failing projects and accelerate the winners? Or are you just kind of hoping the ship doesn't sink while you wait 5 years to check the results? Turning boardroom brilliance into real-world success requires keeping your hands firmly on the wheel. That's all for this explainer. Keep learning, keep steering, and we'll see you next time.